One of the most energetic movements we've seen in the food systems space in the last few decades is the turn towards local, community-based, and other alternative approaches to food production and distribution, whether in the form of farmers markets, community-supported agriculture and fisheries, cooperative food hubs, and so on. But this burst of innovation has unsurprisingly been met with a barrage of critique and naysaying. It's a classic paradigm clash, cast by many as old versus new, or practical versus naive. Instead of moving us forward, we've fallen into a trap, a deadlock that is hindering collaboration on addressing the real issues our food systems face. Like it or not, there's an abundance of evidence that our current food systems are broken. The industrial approach to food production brought efficiency, made immense profit and growth possible, but it's done so only with stolen land and on the backs of widespread environmental degradation, disempowerment, and inequity in climate change. Our food systems excel in one or two dimensions, but they fall short in many others. If we are to move forward, we need to be clear about what we're working towards and untangle the genuine debates and critiques from the misguided and disingenuous ones. Most prominent, I think, is a fundamental misunderstanding of what alternative movements seek to achieve. That is what I want to focus on in this talk. This fundamental misunderstanding involves the difference between the scale of food systems and how they're organized. Scale is about size, about output. It's about scaling up and economies of scale. This is how most people critique local food movements. But local and community are not scales. They describe levels of organization, degrees of complexity. Local is about organization, and concepts like the food mile have unfortunately confused the discussion. These food movements are first and foremost about the arrangement of actors in a food system. They are about strengthening those relationships, about equalizing the distribution of power, and about improving the ability to communicate and share information. They are, in other words, about tightening feedback loops, creating a community of practice who can still see and hear and respond to each other, and who can still see and hear and respond to the ecosystems around them and on which they depend. Tight feedback loops make for sustainable systems. Our modern system has weakened, or in many cases eliminated, these feedbacks. Now I'm going to tell you a story about the Burren in Western Ireland, and a movement there to restore a historical approach to cattle farming. This movement has a modern twist and defies assumptions that many people have about producing food and that it must come at the expense of the environment. The Burren, in counties Clare and Galway, is a beautiful rocky place, full of lush green and browns. It's mostly limestone under a thick layer of soil and carpet of wildflowers, grasses, scrubby hazel, and it's dotted with turlicks, stone ruins, and crisscrossed by a maze of never-ending rock walls. Western Ireland is home to some of the oldest evidence of cattle farming in Ireland, as early as 6,500 years ago. We don't know exactly what kind of system of grazing these ancient Irelanders used, but we do know a lot about the system that emerged from the Middle Ages and the bloody conquests of the English Empire. That practice is known as winterage. A common practice across many cultures is to move cattle up into the hills or mountains to graze during the summer and then back down to shelter during the winter. But in the Burren, they do it backwards. Cattle are moved up to the highlands in the winter, where the sun-warmed limestone and hazel scrub keep them warm and the hardy plants keep them nourished. As agriculture modernized around the world, winterage fell out of favor, replaced with summer grazing and the use of feedstock. But modernization disconnected cattle farmers from the Burren, and in so doing disconnected cattle from the Burren, and the ecological impacts were rapid. Ungrazed scrub took over, choking out animals and wildflowers and insects. Biodiversity plummeted. See, it turned out that the cows were playing the role of keystone species on the Burren, and winterage was particularly important to controlling the scrub and other aggressive plants, while also providing nutrients and disturbing the soil for less aggressive plants and wildflowers. The Burren just was not the Burren as people knew it without farming. So scientists and farmers found a solution. They found a way to recover and reinvent the ancient practice of winterage. They designed an innovative monitoring and payment system that pays farmers from a trust based on the quality of their land and of their practices. The cows are back, and increasingly, so is the rest of the biodiversity. The Burren Winterage program is about restoring broken connections to restore positive feedbacks among land and the community. People were disengaged from their heritage and from one another and from the land. They were disengaged and alienated in the way that so many of us are as the result of the modern lifestyle. Winterage is also reconnecting the wider community in Western Ireland to farming and to the land. Several educational programs have spun out of this work, as well as an amazing fall festival where hundreds congregate to celebrate as they walk a farmer's cattle up into the highlands together. And the farmers are benefiting too. They each receive a premium for land well stewarded and animals well cared for, because the community is valuing what they do beyond just the mere production of protein. Now, the Burren winterage isn't about feeding the world as much as it is about nourishing a community and a landscape. It's about experimenting and linking the wisdom of history to innovative visions for the future. It's a work in progress, and that's what the alternative food movement is about. It's not, and I could not overstate this enough, a retreat. See, critics seem caught up on this idea that community-based food systems want to go back in time to reverse the many gains that they believe modern industrial food systems brought. They just can't seem to reconcile how knowledge from the past can be useful for the future. Either that, or they can't imagine how it's possible to move forward except by perpetuating the values and approaches of the present. Alternative food movements want to move forward. Yes, they seek to reverse some of what we've lost, but they don't seek to backtrack on what we've gained. They are about expanding the discussion of what food systems are for, from mere production of nutrients to a portfolio of mutual benefits to people, animals, and the land. Innovations like we see in the Burren do not seek to feed the world, per se, but I do believe that a world full of such innovations will be a world well fed.